Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel on YouTube for some TNT goss news, everything about Survivor. It's off season. We've got the boys back together so that, I know a lot of people have been messaging Kahuna left, right, and center. Where's Chris? Is he playing Australian Survivor? And I felt like this was the perfect opportunity to set the record straight, Kahuna. I am a reject, a one-time reject. They did not reach out to me this season. Everybody flew out yesterday, and I'm still here in Australia doing a podcast.
Well, look, their loss is our gain, right? That's how I'm seeing it. Australian Survivor has missed out on an opportunity, and we get to keep it.
Yeah, but Mucky, there is someone missing on this panel, though. When last have you spoken to Tom? Because Tom, I don't know about you. I've been trying to get hold of the guy. Crickets. No news since yesterday. Radio silence. Have you been able to talk to Tom?
Well, normally he responds to my 20-minute voice messages, so I don't know why he just has randomly decided to stop. So, yeah, who knows where he could be at this point? You know, my voice messages need listening to, Chris.
Well, he did say, boys, that there was this big family trip. They were planning like some sort of a reunion in Samoa, going over there. So I feel like that's probably where he is. He went to Samoa with his friends and family, and definitely not playing Survivor, Kahuna, as far as we're aware.
Yeah, as far as we're aware, that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
now if Tom was to play Mucky, he's not a brain and he's not a brawn. So what the hell is he doing on the season? And the biggest brawn and the biggest brain of them all are sitting right here on this podcast. I feel like
they're all in one package in Mucky.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, because Tom's a twig, and when it comes to the brains of the group, I feel like I tend to carry that over Tom a wee bit. So maybe there's a beauty tribe, which even then, why isn't Kahuna on it? So
well, I do feel like if they did cast him, and we're not confirming or denying that he's been casted for this next season. Maybe we get through the whole recap review series for this next season without getting cancelled, because he was doing his best that whole season to get us cancelled, Kona, on this YouTube channel.
Yeah. And now he'll just get the show cancelled. He'll get Survivor cancelled.
Well,
he's now everybody's problem. He's not our problem. He's Australia's problem.
I think the reason why Tom's been casted is because, do you guys recall in the last Brains versus Brawn how you had like the bodybuilders and models and stuff like that, and then you just had that one random Janelle, the cleaner. I reckon he's the Janelle of the tribe. Like, he's just a what? Why is this twig here on the Brawn tribe? But no.
Yeah. Let's say hello to people here in the live. We've got Chris. Chris, welcome to the live. Must be early on that side over in the USA, but we appreciate you being here. Snuffed, our friend Riley is in the live as well. Welcome back, my friend. We've got to get you on for a chat at some stage in the coming weeks. We've also got Gabe. Gabe is here. The boys are back. Snuffed is saying AI has advanced. Chris, we know you're an illusion. No, I'm definitely here. Unfortunately, Gabe is saying, sadly, no Chris on Brains versus Brawn. No second coming of Zach next season. And Will is saying, good morning, everyone. Will, welcome to the live. Chris is saying that they're saving me for fans versus favorites. Like I've made peace with it. If I ever do actually get onto the show, it's probably going to be fans versus favorites. Let's talk about the theme that we're aware of so far. We're aware that there's going to be Brains versus Brawn 2. Australian Survivor is going back to a theme that they've done before, Mucky. How excited were you about this theme coming back? I know you're a big fan of Australian Survivor. Did it get you going when you found out that we're going back to Brains versus Brawn?
I mean, look, the theme doesn't really matter to me that much. It just always comes down to the cast. And I think Australian Survivor has nailed a lot of casting decisions. I feel like everyone on Titans vs. Rebels especially was a massive hit. And I think, with Brains vs. Brawn, obviously the first one, like, you had a few really good characters, but I feel like a lot of them were taking up pre-merge. They left the post-merge to be completely dominated by George and Haley. So hopefully they hit the nail on the head with the cast again for Brains vs. Brawn, and we'll get another global phenomenon season, because we're 2 for 2 now.
Yeah. The last Brains versus Braun Kahuna gave us some great characters. Like Mucky said, we've got George who came back. We had Flick who came back. Also, obviously, Simon Mee, who was a big hit on Heroes. It felt like almost all the Brains versus Braun cast delivered in Heroes versus Villains when they came back. And we had about 4 very solid players that returned. Some great players that have not returned yet from that cast as well, that maybe will return in a future All-Star season. How did you feel about the fact that we went back to Brains versus Braun? Did you feel like I did? They're playing it safe more so than taking risks at this stage? Because to me, it felt like a bit of a safe choice to go back to something that they've done before that maybe delivered, and they're not gonna, because they're thinking of taking a risk maybe next season, right? So they thought, let's go this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm similar to Mucky. I don't think after the first episode, like the theme kind of goes away. Like once you kind of work out the tribe thing, and once you get to swaps and everything, tribes don't even really count anymore. But I used to, especially when the US did Brains versus Braun, I really didn't like the theme as a base level. Like the Australian season was so phenomenal with, like you said, with Jordan Haley, that it kind of lifted it and made me feel like, well, Brains versus Braun, it is now a positive association in my head because it was such a good season. But the idea of Brains versus Braun on paper, I don't like, because like, especially in Australian Survivor, where so much of it is physical, there's really nothing to say that a Braun is not smart. They don't necessarily cast, oh, we're going to cast Braun, but they're all dumb and can't do puzzles. That doesn't happen, right? There's often like the Braun, there's some quite smart people in there also, because I've found, as someone who is very, very much not Braun, that a lot of people that are like incredibly fit athletes, physiques, all that sort of thing, the dedication it takes to do that, which I don't have, also applies to study, also applies to, the way they approach,
understanding
learning
nutrition, understanding how to do calorie deficit, and count their macronutrients and all those kind of things. People don't take into consideration there's actually a science involved in being at the top of your game. And some people don't have that smarts. They get nutritionists or people that work out their plans and they just work at it. But there are a lot of people that, you're right, get underestimated. And then there's also the counter to this. Like, I didn't even tell you guys, but I went to a Survivor trivia not that long ago. You would have seen on Instagram that we posted it online. We had challenge beasts like myself and Brendan from Australian Memes, right, carrying the team. And we even had Aileen in our team as well, playing for us while we were doing the trivia. And I thought, a physical specimen like myself, I do Spartan races, do all those things, definitely the challenge part of it, I'm going to dominate. I couldn't have failed worse at the challenges, but the brain stuff, the trivia questions, top of the class when it came to that. So sometimes you can have popcorn muscles, is what I'm saying, Mucky, So definitely if I go out there, there's no fear that I would ever be good at the challenges, Mucky. Just putting it out there if there was ever a fans versus favorite season in the future.
Well, something that Kahuna forgot to bring up was, don't you recall in the Brains tribe, you'd Baden, the Tour de France champion, and he's a brain because you need the brains to work the muscles in the body to control the bike.
Balancing.
Yeah.
But it was also the show balancing the teams. They're like, maybe brains because we need something. We need someone over there. Like, because it was just it's so lopsided when it comes to the physical side. Because unfortunately,
just want to say hello. Just while we've got some Survivor royalty in the Instagram live. We've got Nikadanza, who's just jumped into Instagram live. Welcome to the live. I am trying to swap between Instagram and YouTube at the same time to see comments coming on. And who knows, we may be talking about Nick in a little bit. Like, he could be one of those names that we bring up as a potential returnee for Australian Survivor season versus a USA season, which I know that's why a lot of people are jumping into this live. They want to hear us talk about it. But we wanted to address the Brains versus Braun theme, and that is the thing that people are going to do, because the whole reason for this live is, people probably don't believe this, but you and I, Mucky, have not spoken about Survivor really in the off-season content that has come out, and also Kahuna and I have not spoken. So this is the first opportunity the three of us actually get an opportunity to just talk about all things Australian Survivor. So Brains versus Braun 2, we needed to talk about that, but I understand that is not the biggest news, right? So let's keep the conversation moving because there's two really, really big topics that I want to discuss. It's Survivor 50, Australian Survivor versus the world. Or in the beginning, I think it was going to be Australian Survivor versus USA when I did my little 10-minute, 12-minute rant about me being so happy. And then a lot of things have changed since then. So, this is going to be an opportunity to talk about all of that. We've got quite a few people in the live, so please take part in the conversation. Throw your comments in here as well and take part. We really love it when there's interaction with the live audience. Gabe is saying, sadly, no, Chris, I've seen that. Will has said hello. We've got Gabe saying, I have hope that Brain's tribe won't just be recruits and random athletes thrown into the tribe. My hopes are not that high, unfortunately, Gabe. We know how this production team works. The more Instagram followers, the more athletic and beautiful they look, they're in there. They'll get thrown into this mix for sure. Georgette, morning. Welcome to the live. Gabe is here saying that the last Brains tribe in AU was still brawny and tribe strength focused. Simon was the only one on Brawn who could do puzzles. Very true. Got a little snake for Nick as his little emoji. We've got the snake on Instagram. We've got Jenny K here saying, Brains vs. Brawn started filming yet? Yes, Jenny K. No, it hasn't. I believe they're in sequester, right? So they've just flown over this week.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
It hasn't
last
started.
week or so.
Yeah.
So it's in process anyway.
Gabe's saying they're filming right now. Yeah, maybe. I don't know if they're filming. I know that they've flown. Snuffed says, I think it starts this week, and US casting for 4950 has just started. Exciting stuff with 4950. We're going to talk about that. And then we've got Dolores here saying hello to the fabulous trio. Dolores, thank you so much for that positive comment. We really appreciate it. Let's get into it. I've said, this has been a long intro. We've made people wait a whole 9 minutes into this live. Let's talk about Survivor, the rumors about a season 50, and also Australian Survivor, USA versus the world or versus Australia. And both bits of news, Kahuna, came at around the same time, right? Because we had a live event. I believe it was in Los Angeles. I can't remember exactly where Jeff was when he was talking to the audience, and he decided, because the audience decided for him, that 50 will be a returnee season. Like, Jeff wasn't certain. He needed the audience to give him that okay there to say, yes, 50, let's do a returnee season. And everybody got very hyped about it. But then we also, in the same week, heard that Australian Survivor is going to try and one-up the US by doing a Australia versus World season. Which one of the two got you more excited? Or should we not be comparing? Should we just be grateful we get two great returnee seasons coming up, hopefully, in the next 2 years?
I think you can have both, in that we should be appreciative that there's going to be returnee season, especially on the US Survivor. But I mean, it's not even close as to what was more an exciting announcement, especially considering the timing. To me, like 50 was almost slightly disappointing, not because I heard that it was going to be returnee season, but because it's just a return. Like he hasn't specified that it's all winners, like winners at war again, something like. Or I don't know. Obviously, it has to be, but the fact that it can be returnees could be people that have never won, that have never, it could be he just opened it up to anyone, right? So I'm not sure like that necessarily means anything special beyond another returnee season we've had, except for the fact that it's 50, and I know they want to go huge. I assume they want to go huge, but then Australia just comes and goes, "That's not a knife. This is a knife." It just flop. Like, I'm gone. No.
We lost Kuna there for a second, but we got what Kuna was saying. It's like Australian Survivor just came and it was more exciting finding out that potentially we've got something coming up. I'm just going to remove Kuna for a second until he can figure out his internet. We, had this season dropping. Everybody's excited. Then we hear the news about Australian Survivor. Before I move into Australian Survivor, because I agree, definitely. I mean, that's the reason I made a video, right? I got on to say, when we heard season 50, that wasn't enough for me to do a 10-minute video to rant about it. But hearing the Australian news, I was very excited about that. But talking about season 50, do you think that season 50, Mucky, do you think that Jeff will continue to follow in this line of just calling it a numbered season? It's just going to be Survivor 50. Do you think that will be enough? Or surely at this point, bringing back All-Stars, you've got to make it an All-Star season, or you've got to make it some sort of a theme to get people really hyped and behind. I know you said you don't care about themes, but for returnee seasons, do you really think season 50 is just going to be 50?
I think season 50, Jeff is going to be like, now wait a minute, is the season you've all been waiting for. New era All-Stars. I think it's going to be a flop. I think it's going to be shit. Like, I'm sorry. I hate American Survivor. I really do. Like, just before we did this live, I did some notes on like, you know, some of the recent new era players who could even potentially play in the American versus Australia season. And as I was watching through highlights, reading about like what the best moments of the past few seasons was, I was like, this is rubbish. This is like nothing compared to like the last 3 or 4 seasons of Australian Survivor, right? And yeah, I think
because Blood vs. Water was so great.
I'm willing to argue that Blood vs. Water actually had some episodes that were much better than like the past, since the entirety of the new era Survivor. The Jesse Blindside, Croc Blindside, for example, like were phenomenal. But anyways, yeah, I'm sorry because I hate American Survivor. I do. But you know, like I think the best they can do at this point, because I think a lot of like, you know, the bigger characters and bigger names they have in American Survivor probably aren't going to come back for New Era. So I think the best they can do is like you know, people from the 30s and potentially 20s against a new era, and that's what 2 tribes will be based out of. That's like the best I can think of.
I've got some thoughts on your comments, and I'm just going to go back real quick to see what people are saying here. We've got, we've got the 15 days coming up. We're definitely going to be talking about that. Believe me, Jenny. Gabe is saying production wanted more US players, but they said no, probably to not hurt chances to go on to 50. And that's a question I definitely want to ask the panel here, what they think season 50 and potentially being in the pool for that would mean when it comes to trying to get players to come and play Australian Survivor. And then Snuff is saying, keep it as Survivor 50, but invite 50 castaways. I kind of like that. If they do, you know, Survivor 50, 50 castaways, we get a second chances too, where people vote out of that 50 who they want to go and actually play the season, then maybe there's something there. Jenny is saying season 50, I hope, is really epic with a Squid Game amount of players and just eliminate half of the cast after 2 or 3 days. Just to see 50 players on the bench from every era would be amazing. And I like the eras idea. The challenge is doing it. They've got 4 different eras coming up for season 40. It's going to be an epic season. So I do like that idea, Jenny. To address Mucky's, you know, like Mucky's definitely coming in hot, coming in without a filter. For those people who don't know, Mucky has not, like, when's the last season of Survivor US you watched? Was that season 41? And then you decided you're out as soon as the new era happened?
No, so I watched up to 44 because you made me come on for the finale of 43. I was like, all right, fine. And then there was a question of I might be coming on for 44. So I watched 44. After that, I was like, nah, I'm done. Like, I don't want to watch this crap anymore. So yeah, I haven't seen past 44.
Listen, I understand. I'm not a fan of New Era Survivor. I'm not a fan of the game mechanics. I'm not a fan of the repetitiveness of it. And in some ways, I was hoping that with the news of an Australian Survivor season coming in and them potentially doing a Worlds Collide kind of season, which fans have been wanting for such a long time. You know, Kahuna, I spoke about this in my 10-minute video. I was hoping that it would put pressure on Jeff to actually re-look at the current format and how he's doing things in Survivor US to potentially change things up, knowing that there is going to be pressure put on that franchise. But again, they're competing for different markets. A lot of people who watch the US Survivor will probably never watch Australian Survivor. And it's going to heavily rely on Australian Survivor fans for Australian Survivor versus Worlds Collide to be a thing, because the people from the US who do watch Australian Survivor, they're not necessarily watching this via links that actually pay Australian Survivor. You know what I mean? It's definitely some piracy going on there. So it's a tough one. Like, I know we like to compare the two, but it's two different demographics, and the one don't really, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who'll hear this live, they'll hear Mucky's arguments and the fact that he doesn't like Survivor US, and they'll come in hot because they've never watched Australian Survivor, so they can't compare the two really. But I do agree it's a better show. The recent seasons of Survivor US have been difficult to watch, and unfortunately we don't have Jake here to defend US Survivor, because you and I weren't too high off Survivor 46 at certain points of time. Like there were times where we were like, oh, what's going on? This is a bit of a tough one.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Look, I do think that Australia has the superior product, and has for a while now, especially in the new era. It's not to say that, but like you said, it's a completely different market. It's a much smaller market, to the point where, like, the US, I don't know that Jeff is even bothered by whatever criticism and hype Australia gets, whatever criticism US gets versus whatever hype Australia gets. It's kind of like the rivalry between New Zealand and Australia in general as countries. New Zealand's like, there's a rivalry, and Australia's like, what? Sorry?
Yeah.
Is there?
That's good. How many Bledisloe Cups have you lost?
We're losing the audience now, Mucky. We're losing the audience.
So, look, I do think Australia is a much better product, but I've been saying for a long time that I never thought that, as much as people have been clamoring for it, the fans have been shouting for it, that an international season, I never thought the US would do it, only because I don't think he wanted to showcase that he now has the inferior product. Jeff, that is, like, by highlighting that. I think that's his ego, but I don't think it's smart. I think he should actually be leaning into it, embracing it, especially now. When you mentioned that a lot of US viewers are viewing it from usually illegal sources, that's changing with Paramount Plus and CBS and all that, and the fact that it's all globally owned. If they can actually try to build, the comparison that we always do, Chris, not only just between US and Australia, but between the Challenge and Survivor, is that TJ's actually said in his intros, we've built a multiverse. He used the phrase multiverse, which we thought was a little bit, wanky and doesn't really apply. But he's got spin-offs and spin-offs and spin-offs. And so does Survivor, probably to a better extent, but they just don't embrace it. They don't own it and say, this is global. Jeff could be the king of global Survivor and have Australian Survivor under him, and sort of lean into that, bring them in, especially for 50. My dream scenario would have been if the Australian Survivor global competition goes well, which, looking like as time goes on, it's getting more and more watered down. Jeff might have looked and they go, I'm stealing that. I'm taking that bitch and making it mine for 50. I'm getting the greats from all of them and bringing the best of the best of the best for 50. That would have been what I would have done. But Jeff's just not. He's got blinders on, man.
Jeff has said on his own podcast, I forgot the name of it, On Fire or Fire. Somebody in the live will tell us the podcast name. But he's said on the podcast that he doesn't watch other franchises. He doesn't care to watch what other people are doing. He's going to do. Now, for me, there's no problem. Like, listen, if the new era, and I don't want to make this whole podcast about what's wrong with the new era, right? But if the new era had 2 seasons, like they did with Edge of Extinction, the good old days when we had Edge of Extinction, who would have thought we would say that now? If they had 41 and 42 in the same format, same theme, and they kept innovating and tried different things, I would have been applauding it. The Challenge does it. Every single season is different. No season is exactly the same. The problem is it feels like we're stuck in Groundhog Day and we haven't moved on from the game mechanics. And there's certain mechanics that have played out too many times that I've gotten bored of as, I don't know, probably I'm these days more of a casual viewer than like a super fan. And, some people still to see, there's definitely still a dynamic or a certain amount of people out there that absolutely love seeing the same thing play out over and over. The other part for me as well is we have, like, talking about season 50, right? If they were to bring players back for season 50, Mucky came in hot and he said that, Kahuna, while you were away, that they'll probably bring a lot of new era players back, right? But Jeff has said that it will be a mixture of new era players and pre-season 40. He has confirmed that. So definitely it's not going to be new era players only. How many new era players would really stand up right now and be in that pool of players that you, Kahuna, would like to see? Because you and I have continued to watch this show. I know there's maybe 1 or 2 seasons you didn't watch, like 42 and 43, I think, with the 2
42, 43.
You missed. But 44, 45, 46, and 41, like if you had to look back at that pool of players, who stands out for you right now as someone where you're like, they have to be a lock to come back and play season 50?
like I said, my hope for 50 would be that the stakes for it is that it's all winners. You have to have at least the winners, and then maybe some of the clear standouts. Like, like if you have a Yam Yam, oh man, I'm blanking on names now.
Can I say something about the winners, right? And this is why I asked you this question. I kind of set you up, to be honest, because I know a lot of people are going to hate me. Yeah, of course I did. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, right? But to me, it's absolutely insane the amount of mental gymnastics that fans do to justify new era winners and say they were a great winner. Like this last season's winner, and I've already forgotten her name, did not impress me. Did not impress me. And same with Erica, same with like Marianne was a fun character. I still don't think she was a great winner, right? So there's a lot of players that win these seasons, and then at the end of it, the fans go through mental gymnastics to fabricate things that we didn't see on screen, similar to with like Cassidy and certain players, where I feel like if you're a big player, you get sniped in the new era. It doesn't promote you being a big player. It promotes for you to sit back, hope that the big players don't snipe at you, and that you're there long enough to make one move that potentially will get you to the end to win the game. And for me personally, it's a winning game, and I respect you won the game that way, Mucky, but it's not entertaining to watch, right? So that makes it, for me, difficult to even remember some of the winners. Like, I feel like the only memorable winners we've had, D was a beast, right? So D, 100% locked to come back, best new era winner for me personally, played dominant from beginning to end, ran her alliance, had Austin around her pinky throughout the whole game. Yep. He threw his game away for her. She is a Black Widow. She's the new Black Widow, right? So 100% D is a dominant winner. Yam Yam was a mid-tier winner for me. It was fun, but he's mid-tier. And then I like Gabler. I like Gabler as a character. But again, those are not, none of them are like, only D. I would only classify D as like a really good winner out of all of the new school winners, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I was like during some of my notes, D was one of the first people that was like, okay, I got to check out her game because I know she's very popular in the Survive community. And she was the only one who I was like really impressed with. It's like, wow, she did play such a great dominant game in the new era. And I feel like the other couple of winners who chatted about, Gable and Marianne, I feel like those three winners, now obviously I haven't seen much of Kenzie's game. I think this one who won 46. I feel like the other ones who actually really did something, like at least Marianne made that move on Omar. And then, Gabler made the move on Ali, and it's something we've always discussed about Chris, about like Gabler's social game, how great it was, right? And so at least them two have actually done something. But with a lot of new era players, what have they actually done? You get what I mean?
Yeah, and like, I want to address this, Chris, like nothing to do with them being females. Like I said, even Yam Yam's mid to me. Gabler, like, even though I like Gabler and I thought he was a fun character, I can't hand on heart say he's like a top tier winner. Like literally the only winner I'm giving credit is a female winner, and it's D. Like she's the only one to me that have played a winning game that I really enjoy, where I felt like she dominated from the beginning to end. And Australian Survivor, more often than not, will give us good winners, will give us good end games. Like heroes versus villains for Australian Survivor. Like I don't want to spoil because everybody haven't seen, like I don't know if Chris has gone back and watched heroes versus villains. So I don't know how much we can talk about some of these things. Chris, you may get spoiled. I'm sorry, at certain times in the game. Like that was probably disappointing, and it was a great season, right? But more often than not, the winners, you can kind of see how they got to the end and what they did to get there. I do want to roll it back though, because we've got D as a lock. I think Kahuna Q is a lock. Like he's the biggest character of the new era, right?
Q has to be. Absolutely.
I think Caroline as well. I feel like D, Q, Caroline.
Caroline, 100%. Yeah. Caroline's in. Yam Yam would be in because of a character that he is, potentially, if he wants to come back and play. I like Danny from season 41, but he wasn't really necessarily a player that stood out in that season. He stood out when he came back to play the challenge. So I don't know if he's going to be somebody that will actually come back to play. And then you've got, like, I guess you've got Jesse, and you've like Omara was fun.
Ricard.
I'm not a fan. Like, if you call yourself a legend, like, no, like it's the fans need to decide if you're a legend. Like, you can't be calling yourself a legend.
The real legend of the new era, Zelensky.
Zelensky, yeah, for several reasons. Sean, like, I can see.
We did say multiple times that this 46 was absolutely legendary and first time accomplishments and everything in the negative direction. It was doing the highest amount of misplays for idols. Like there was so many things that was like, I've never seen that before. And it's obviously like unique, but not for a good reason at all. And that's not something to stand on, you know?
Yeah, it's just when you look at New Era Survivor, and this is my point, it's so hard to come up, in my opinion, with a list, a whole tribe that you're like, man, I can't wait to see these players play against the players that played pre-40, right? Because most of the players we'd probably like to see are players that have not had a chance to come back yet, right? So think about Angelina, think about Davey from David versus Goliath, maybe Christian Ubicki, like, you know, Rick Devens hasn't come back to play yet, you know? There's a lot of players, I feel like, from prior to season 40 that probably deserves a shout out. Mucky, you're someone that you were, and this is what people need to understand. You're a fan of Survivor. You love Survivor. You love the concept of it. You did watch it prior to 40. Is there anybody from prior to 40 that, you know, you feel like should come back?
Yeah, no, there's quite a few people. Like when I was going through a list of players from the 30s who haven't come back, there is a long list of people who are never going to play again just because the casting pool is now too big. Like someone like Dominic, I would hope he would come back. I feel like he's got one of the biggest stories on the reason why he should come back. But with the casting pool so big now, who knows, right? Same with Christian, same with Davey and Rick Devens. I really liked Kara from David vs. Goliath as well. But once again, like her time is probably gone now. But someone who I really, really loved, like Ghost Island, was one of the, I think it was the first American season that, like, you know, pre-game I was so into. I loved the concept of it and stuff like that. But there was a guy named Michael. I think he's a porn star now, actually, so I'm not sure if they would want to bring him back. But
I think I remember him. I think I remember him, actually.
But I loved Michael and his whole underdog arc, how he was, you know, at the bottom from the tribe swap and he couldn't quite get his way out of there. But he found numerous ways on surviving each vote and whatnot. But once again, we now have so many people who can probably fill that spot, right? Is he going to come back? I don't know. But yeah, like a lot of people from the 30s who probably should have come back to play it again. Like wow.
I think there are some players from Island of the Idols that will come back potentially. You've got DK Chillin, Dean, like he's a good, and then you've also got who was it also a Lauren? I forgot her name, Lauren, who was with Tom, with Tommy. Like she was a great player. She deserves another shot, right? And especially, let's be honest, in Survivor US, they look at diversity. She's a great casting choice in the new era of what they're looking for in casting. So bring her in, not just based on that, obviously, but based on the fact that they have to make sure the cast represents, right? And she was a top tier level strategist that got sniped right at the end before the final, right? So I think there's a story for her to come back and play again, Kuna.
I don't even remember her.
Oh, really? You don't?
No. I was like trying to scratch the
She was playing with Tommy throughout the whole season. So Tommy and her were basically hand in hand playing the same strategic game throughout. And then he was just ahead of her and knew if he was to sit next to her in the end, he had to snipe her because their games were too similar. So I feel like that could have been very much the first season. Now we've got this whole thing that annoys me every single season in New Era Survivor Kona, where people are like, I have to take out my best friend. I feel like they give them Island of the Idols to watch to prepare for Survivor New Era. And because of that, they're like, I have to take out my best friend before I get to the end because that is how I build a resume. No, you take out good players and that is how you build a resume. If your friend is just like your second in command, and they're a number, why are you trying to vote them out of the game? It's dumb. It's not good gameplay.
Yeah. Like, obviously, there are times in context where it's necessary if they are literally the biggest threat and, like, to your game, and you know that is. But a lot of the times, they're just doing it for the sake of it and taking out, like you said, that actually negatively impacts them.
Something that I found about the new era, right, was especially when it comes to like the final tribal council, everyone is like, obviously because everyone's such a massive fan, right? Like everyone wants to put their mark in the game. So if you say, oh, I did this move, it's like, no, actually I made this move. Everyone is so petty about what they've done in the game. And I love it.
100%. Brendan here, Australian Survivor meme, says Chris Underwood would struggle in the new era of Survivor. Way too many days for him to play. And Snuff to say, yes, twice as long as his first season.
They shortened it for him. Like, he's actually got less days to play now. It's such a more of an advantage.
Danica's got some compliments for you on your traders lives.
Thank you, Danica. Thank you.
Can't watch it live, but watching the replays. For those who are interested, and if you do watch Traders New Zealand, Mucky is now I feel like you're now the specialist on the Nullified Take when it comes to all things Traders related, and is covering Traders New Zealand with some previous Australian Survivor players have been on, previous Traders players have been on. Seems like a lot of fun. So make sure to check out the channel.
Tomorrow night we've got Dylan and Julia from the first season. They'll be coming on, and for the finale, which is next week, Sam, hopefully Dylan and Julia will all be with us, and maybe even Annabelle. So, stay tuned, everyone. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Dolores also says, yes, Traders Recap is amazing. Keep it going.
Thank you.
So more love coming here. Obviously, with some people in the audience don't always get the opportunity to overlap when you film, Mucky, because for people, they probably wouldn't know, you're 2 hours ahead of us, even here in Australia. So normally your 8 p.m. would have been 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I'm in the future. I know everything. See, this is why.
And yet he still makes mistakes.
This is why I'd be on the brain stripe of Australia. Like, I'd be like that sidekick who like knows everything. It's like, my 2 hours ahead in the future tells me that Chris has the idol. Like, it's all there. I got it.
And you still would not vote me out. It's like how 2 hours ahead of time, before you did your love confession to Eileen with a song, and you heard it yourself play back, you still decided it was a good idea to go ahead and still do it on the live again.
Actually, when I posted the Need You Now cover that we did, I just checked the other day. It's almost got 5,000 views.
Yeah, it's quite high on iTunes in New Zealand, right? Is it top 50 in iTunes in New Zealand right now? There's not many listeners over in New Zealand, but
I'm pretty sure it's right under like the what's the song called? It's a classic famous one where it goes, I don't know, what is love? Oh, why does love do this to me? That's the song name. Yeah, it's like number 2 and that's number 1. Yeah.
Like for anybody that loved the Mucky song or hated it, don't worry. He only does it once a season. As far he's contracted to only do it once a season. That is the agreement for him to still be a Nullified Take host. So you're gonna have to wait next season to see who he is going to do a song for. But let's get into, like, is there anything that we haven't discussed about, like season 50? Like, I don't know. It's too early for me at this stage to even think about it. The only thing we probably didn't talk about, and we probably should talk about as well before we move on from season 50, is, isn't it crazy that you now have given players 2 seasons to prepare, where other players are going to come in the next 2 seasons? They're going to have no time to like pre-game. We know pre-gaming is happening. 100% is happening right now between players. And there's going to be players that are going to get casted that have yet to play Survivor, Kuna. What kind of disadvantage is it for the players that are coming up in 47, 48, and 49? It's 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's a huge disadvantage. Like, it, in so many ways. Like, someone mentioned in the comments before, I'll read this from Jenny. New area personally deserve their own returnee season to put their mark to become a legend, then lumping them in with legends from 1 to 40. But it sucks we had such a gap from the last returnee season. And I think that's a really good point, because these players not only, get disadvantaged in multiple ways. Like, they don't have the time to actually pre-game, but we're talking about not only pre-game of 2 years here, Chris, but we're talking pre-game of like 2 decades for some of these people. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like their connections have, similar to what we always talk about with the challenge, goes for over seasons, through social events, through all the social gatherings, all of the multiple seasons that they come back for. They build up these relationships, and there's a bond there, right? These players don't get that opportunity, so not only do they not have that chance to build it up over time, they don't have the chance to build it up in the behind the scenes preseason, like once you get notified. And then they're also kind of behind the game as far as knowing, like, having those relationships at all, but also just getting thrown in with absolute iconic legends of the thing as far as the fans go. And the reason why these players are iconic legends in our mind is because we got to see them multiple times over and over again, right? You get the best one and you put them in again. And then they're really good, you put them in again. And we sometimes 3-4 times, and we get to fall in love with these players. And for 10 seasons now, there's been no returnees. 10 seasons. And it's unfair to all these people. They don't get that opportunity to build the relationship with the fans.
Totally agree. I just want to say, Jenny, you're coming for my job at the moment with comments like that, because it's such a great observation. And talking about legends, we've got a bit of a legend here in the live, Mr. Ferris himself, dropping and saying, long time, boys. It's good to see you in the live, Ferris. Yeah, I mean, probably timely as well, because we are going to be talking, we're moving on from season 50, and we're going to be talking about Australian Survivor legends versus Survivor US legends, potentially now world legends. There's a lot of rumors going on. Our boy Tom, right? How good of a season will he have to play if he's out there? I mean, listen, he's definitely not out there. He's visiting family in Samoa. That's what I've heard. But, you know, obviously not around tonight. So if Tom goes out there and plays this season, right? If we've got it wrong, he's not actually on holiday with family. How big of a season, Mucky, will he have to play to be considered to play with the likes of Ferris when it comes to, you know, or players similar to Ferris, like a George or a David Gannett, when it comes to playing in such a big season now? How much pressure is on this Brains versus Brawn cast, knowing they knew this news before they went out there? Is it going to influence the way that they're going to play this game? Will it have an influence on how players will play this game? Will they play harder than ever to try and knock Ferris out or knock George out and be a bigger player than them so that they get the call back for next season?
Well, just two things real quick. One, you're calling Ferris legend, but I feel like you got Ferris, and then, like, you know, way further up, like around here, is legend. So, you know, like, would he even be called for the season? I'm not too sure. But no, I love you, bro. But
you know what? The only reason Mucky is this brave is because he's over in New Zealand. Like, he would not be saying it if he was in Australia.
Yeah, no, but like, what I was gonna say, yeah, Tom would have to play a pretty spectacular season. I mean, we have seen, like, I think like George and Brains versus Brawn was probably like the one game that was like, oh my gosh, we need him back ASAP. You get what I mean? Like, I feel like a game like that could really be the only thing that would justify, you know, a player from this Brains versus Brawn cast. I mean, maybe they'll put in like.
How would it have influenced your game if you saw the news 2-3 weeks? Like, I mean, we knew you were going to go play hard in any case. Like, you don't know how to play a subtle game. You would have played hard from the beginning. But would it have influenced you any differently going into the game, knowing that if you made a big enough name for yourself this season, you could get a call back to play back-to-back?
Well, I mean,
would you have played more subtle?
I'm already a legend. Let's be real. Like, if I was like first boot, I'd still be asked to come back, because I'm unlike Ferris. I've actually got, like, you know, the legend that's born within me, right? You know, like. I mean, like, yeah, you'd have to play one spectacular game, and I feel like that is something that could be on a lot of people's minds. I know that Tom and I have had chats about that. Like, would anyone from Brains vs. Brawn actually be considered to come back and play? And I think one, maybe two maximum, but it would have to be George and Haley, Brains versus Brawn sort of story, sort of style. Even Ferris and Kirby, most likely. But I feel like Ferris and Kirby have kind of taken that story already. So,
Ferris is definitely going to remember it. And I expect a cheeky confessional somewhere, Ferris, where when you play against Mucky and fans versus favorites, where you're like, you know, this is my TNT vote, and then make like a little boom sound. So we know that it was due to the conversation that happened here. An inside joke for people who listen to the TNT podcast, that you were on top of it. You knew that Mucky was actually a hater. You had to take him out early in the game, you know? Mucky never learns, always says too much on these podcasts.
Well, what Ferris doesn't know is I'll sneak my recorder onto the island. I'll drive him mad, and he'll quit on the first day. So who's the strategist now?
That strategy always works in Survivor. It's just driving everyone mad and make them hate you a lot. It's like meta.
Definitely.
If Russell can do it and come back 4 times, I'm sure I can come back 5 times.
Kahuna, there's a lot going on with Australian Survivor. What has been your thoughts about the possibility of there being this season? You know, we spoke about it. We're excited. We're hyped about it. But we heard that it was going to be a potential 39-day season, not the normal 50. Now we're going down to 16 days. Like, what are we doing? Like, is it time to call it? Like, I mean, I want to see the season, but 16 days? Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel about that?
It's just been watered down over time. When every time we hear a new rumor, it seems to get worse, which kind of sucks because it was such, like I said before, I got cut off before. It was such an exciting announcement for me to see. That's what we've all been clamoring for, and I've been saying it for years. I've said it on the podcast, and I've said it on Facebook groups, all that sort of thing. I knew Australia was the one to do it. They had the balls to try and pull it off, because we also have this very weird thing where we think our celebrity isn't big enough, and we always try to get people from overseas to prop up our entertainment industry. It's just the way we've always done things in Australia. So I knew Australia would be happy to do it, and we've seen it with getting Russell, getting Sandra, even Sandra's daughter. Like that's what I mean. That's how desperate we are to have any link to like US fame. Like, so that's what I knew we would do it. And then to hear that it just gets watered down and watered down and watered down when the potential is so big. Like I was saying before, if Jeff just looked at it as the blueprint or the starting point for what he could do on a big global massive event, and you bring in UK and revive South Africa. Don't worry about New Zealand, because that was a bad Survivor show.
I agree. And I mean, listen, it's I don't understand the fandoms. Like, there's fans out there, I'm sure Mucky will defend the Survivor New Zealand, but it wasn't a great franchise, let's be honest.
So there's so much opportunity there, and it just keeps getting tipped away more and more. I hear about it to the point where I'm like, oh, I don't know now. Because if you go 16 players, I could feel 16 players or 16 days, but it's a fewer players as well, right? For that amount, it was like not even 16 days. Yeah.
that is sharp, Brendan. 16 days. That's got Sandra written all over it. She's coming back. She's like, I'll only do 16 days if I'm going to come back and play. It's interesting though that they're going to 16 days. To me, what that means is that they're probably not happy with the response that they've received when they put their early feelers out to see which one of the US players would potentially bite if they throw the bait out there, right? And probably a lot of the players, they were probably going very high. I'm talking right to the top. They probably try to reach out to like the Boston Robs, potentially the Tyson Apostles, players that have played on Winners at War that are legendary in status. They wanted, I think, some of those players to come over and play the game. And clearly there has been some pushback where players have said that they can't. They've moved on in life. I know that there was a podcast not that long ago, maybe a year, 2 years ago, on Tyson Apostle's podcast, where he had Danny McRae talking to him, and they were talking about there's rumors that there's going to be a Worlds Collide season at some point. And Danny was like, Tyson, would you play if such a season came around? And he said, I would only do it if it's 2 weeks. I would not play more than 2 weeks. I've got family, I've got kids. I don't want to miss out on that time. So I feel like it's got Tyson Apostle and that level of celebrity when it comes to Survivor written all over it. Now, for me personally, I don't feel like we need that level of player. I love Tyson. No. I love Boston Rob, Parvati, all of those guys and girls. They're legends. They're Mount Rushmore players. But we just said there are great players in the US that have not played a second time. Dominic Abate comes to mind. You could probably get a Wendell to come back and play again. You could get like your Chris Nobles. You could get players that would fit into the Australian Survivor because they're jokey, fun characters. They're really charismatic and athletic. You could get some great players coming in to play the game, Mucky. Do we need this legendary status if it's going to mean that we're going to get a watered-down Survivor version, which is going to be worse than the new era? Like, new era is going to look tough in comparison to it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like, for the longest time when I've thought about a Worlds Collide type season, I've always wanted like the best of the best. I want to see the Golden God and Luke Toki against Rob and Sandra. You get what I mean? Like, that's what I've always wanted to see. But if it has been watered down so much to the point where it's like 5 days, only one episode, it's like, well, scrap it. That's like, if I wanted to watch a show like that, I watch Big Brother. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Not Survivor. And so, yeah, we've talked about, I feel like there's a lot of players, especially in the 30s, like someone like a Wentworth, like she's very high on Australian Survivor. I know Dave and Rick Devens have always been very high on International Survivor. So there are still big names out there who I know would love to come and play Australian survivor from the American side as well. So, but I wonder if a lot of people said no, because I know that, as we talk about Jeff Grubbs, he doesn't really mention the other franchises of Survivor and stuff. Do we think for the players who go out to do this Australian season would probably have like a knock against their name and won't come back for
100%. Jeff is 100%. I'm telling you now, I don't know this for a fact. I don't know this for a fact, right? So this is only my opinion. So people can come at me for my opinion online, but Jeff is 100% that kind of guy. I still believe when Australian Survivor was on Paramount Plus in the US, started gaining popularity, and then suddenly when people started tweeting about it in the US, wow, greatest franchise out there at the moment. We haven't had Survivor been this good in years over in the US. Suddenly that got removed. And you cannot tell me that Jeff that he didn't have a hand in that. Like, he had a hand in that, 100%. And I tell you now, like, if people are going to go over to the Australian franchise to prop it up and to make it better in any kind of status, Jeff will shut that down. Like, it's famous that when Jay jumped over to play the challenge, that Jeff was not happy about that. Like, he was very much like, Jay, you've crossed to the dark side. I want you back on the show. So I think a lot of players that go over to the challenge as well, unfortunately, and there's quite a few of them now, like, that have done that. I don't think we see any of them on season 50 either, just like we would not see any of the players that would to play an Australian Survivor season. And I think that's why Legends kind of makes sense, because you could probably get Legends because a lot of them wouldn't want to play Survivor in the US again. And their status is big enough that it may not dent them. Like, a Tyson will probably not be dented by it. But there's a lot of players like your Doms or your, maybe your David Rickenbach, or, players that have not come back, like a Rick Devens, like, they could be affected by playing Australian Survivor. And I think that would also, there must be some political Game of Thrones happening in the behind the scenes right now, Kuna.
I wonder if you'd have to do a realistic sort of assessment of where you are. Like, Rick Devens, sure, he can go, I think I'm in with a shot. Like, I would definitely be in consideration for 50, but there's got to be players that would be like, I'm not at that level to get a call up for 50.
Yeah.
I'll do Aussie Survivor. Like,
like Chris Noble is a great character. Like, he's probably not coming back for 50, but I reckon Chris Noble could be a fun character on Australian Survivor, and he would physically be pretty good, So it's an example of one of those players that probably is falling outside of the peripheral of where they're looking,
Yeah,
so
and something I just want to bring up. Let's not forget that the season that was airing at the time that was on Paramount Plus was Blood versus Water. So the worst season of Australian Survivor was still much better than the new era crap. So, just saying.
That's crazy. I didn't know that it was Blood versus Water, but that is pretty insane. I want to go back and bring a few comments up from where Dolores said goodbye to us. Dolores, I hope you're seeing this later on. We'll keep Mucky in check. Snuffed is saying, very true, Kuna, constantly bringing Americans over to prop our TV shows here in Australia. So agreeing with you. Jenny is saying, I think they should table AU versus World until after season 50. More chances, get bigger US players to agree, but include SA, NZ, and the UK would be awesome too. For me personally, I love Survivor South Africa, right? Really big fan of that franchise. RIP to the Survivor South African franchise. It's still out in the wilderness. I hope it gets taken back up one day. And there are players that I would definitely go to bat for in a season if there's a Worlds Collide season. But if you had to ask me right now, should we push ahead with the 16-day season with SA players in it and a bunch of other players? I'd be like, even though I'd be happy to see a Chappies play a season again, Dino be back, see any of the two Nicoles come back, a Santoni. There's so many great players, seeing them come back, and Nesu, Palesa, I would say no to all of that, rather so we can get a proper season. So I agree with you, Jenny. If this is the best that we can do prior to season 50, then wait for season 50 to be done, because it'll probably be another 5 or 6 years before we get our next All-Star season. So that will be perfect for people to then jump onto this crossover season. I just want to put it out there. I'm a massive fan of this crossover season. I just feel like the timing is slightly off at this stage for me. Snuffed is saying justice for Lisa. Brendan is saying 16 days. That's got Sandra written all over it. Will says Tyson should just work on his pickleball game. I've not been following his pickleball game, also. I don't know if he's lacking, if he's starting to drop in a skill set there, if you're saying that. Jenny is saying Parvati is booked on Deal or No Deal Island. Maybe she picked that instead, and probably it will be paying her a lot more than what Australian Survivor wouldn't be paying appearance fees. And I'm sure somebody of Parvati's status going on to Deal or No Deal Island will probably get some great appearance fees just to go and do that. Snuffed is saying, yes, so many opportunities for those big Survivor players now. Obviously, Snuffed is also saying Rob, Tony, Jeremy on Traders. That is another big announcement we haven't spoken much about. And I know that, as someone that loves Traders, Mucky, that must be exciting to know that the next USA season, I know we kind of fell off from the last one and lost momentum, but I'm a big Tony fan. So seeing Tony come back, seeing Rob's performance on Deal or No Deal Island, which was great, and then Jeremy is a loved Survivor player as well. That makes you excited for the next Trader season as well.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, a very interesting conversation that Sam Smith and I were having on the live last week, and including Mark from Tons vs. Rebels, he was in the chat as well.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Who? No. Actually, Mark actually agreed with this take, actually. So I feel like our relationship has really improved since he.
Yeah, like I said, who? Like he's just become more forgettable after that comment.
Yeah. No, but anyways, the conversation was, so when I look back on Traders US Season 2, right, and I feel like the same thing's going to happen with US Season 3. Since you have these reality TV stars, they're playing with legacies, they're playing with reputations, right? They're more playing a character rather than playing themselves. And that's what Traders New Zealand's doing really well. Our current season at the moment does not have any celebrities on it. And I'd argue it's had more jaw-dropping moments than
last season. Neither.
George. What? I mean, it still had some. I'm also saying, yeah, like last season.
That's the only way. You see, by the way, Mark, you fell for my trap. This is the only reason I know who's actually in the talks with this next Worlds Collide season coming up, because they're all like little snakes, little rats sitting in these spy shacks. You got to throw some crumbs out there to see who's going to bite. Now I know Mark is in the chat. Ferris is still in the chat, so we're on to you, boys. We're on to you.
Yeah, but Traders New Zealand is much more raw, right? And it's got a lot more emotion behind it, which has produced really great jaw-dropping moments. Whereas with Traders US, it kind of feels not really scripted, but it's like, oh, well, this is my reputation. I might as well just play up to that, if that makes sense. And so while I'm excited for Traders US Season 3, I feel like Traders New Zealand is killing it at the moment. Yeah. So, yeah.
Ferris is sealed lips, You're doing much better than Tom, who made it very obvious when he suddenly went silent yesterday on us, and we haven't heard back from him. And we heard that there may or may not be some people in Samoa right now. Mark is saying, Ferris and me are the ultimate lurkers. No, we love it, boys. We love it. So
that's
really
one of the sadder things for me about hearing the degradation of the potential season with the Australia versus the Globe is that we have some of these characters like a Ferris and a Mark that I would instantly put up against the best in the world and know that we'll get a great TV product and some really great Survivor. And we've got this, we've got the last however many seasons, we could put up a phenomenal lineup for that show.
There's too many good players.
And I feel like they're just getting hard done by the fact that production hell or whatever is meaning that it's getting not going to be what we want it to be and give, a chance for our show to really shine the way it should.
Yeah, because they're finding it hard to get the same level of quality from the US. And the people that they're reaching out to potentially at this stage have got other commitments going on. They want the season to be shorter. Like, it's crazy to me that we could look at so many of the last seasons. Like, I was thinking about this prior to jumping on the podcast. Like, if you were to cast for Australian Survivor versus USA right now, you'd look at your David Gnatz, Luke Toki, George, Ferris. I would argue Simon Me probably is going to be like any season where George comes back, you almost want to see Simon come back. Yeah, like you've got Mark, you've got so many great players, right, that have played recently that we could easily go. The one part, though, that I am a little bit less certain of is the female side, because there are quite a few of the females that would potentially be in the running that have now newly become mothers. Timing's not great. So you've got Haley, you've got Brooke Jowett, Shawnee, all of them suddenly in doubt. Like, would they play a season like that being moms? And it's different for moms versus dads. Like, I feel like the bonding that they have in those early stages make it very difficult to leave kids behind. So that could drastically affect the players that we potentially could see coming back, Mucky. We spoke about the riches of Survivor Australia and the players that we have. Like, if you don't have Brooke, you don't have Shawnee, Flick, you won't have Flick either, original Flick. And who's the other person that I said there as well? Like Haley. Where do you go? Where do you go in the female side?
Lucky's going to say Rogue.
Yes, Rogue. Bring back Rogue. No, but you still have other great legends. Like, because I think, if we were to like make a cast of the Australian team, I feel like a lot of us would have similar names, and then probably a few other like different names chucked in there as well. Because the Australian side has got much more like stronger players we can put forward. Whereas with the Americans, there's a lot of I don't knows. I think a Kirby is probably like a lock for this. I can see them. Eileen, oh my gosh, sorry.
Like, listen,
let me just quickly play. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but Eileen as well. I feel like someone as well who no one's really spoken about for a long time because she wasn't even asked for All Stars. But Sarah Talik, I feel like she's kind of become a bit of a legend in herself.
I like her, but I think she's completely out. Like, I mean, I don't know her at all. And Ferris, I feel like I think I've seen a photo recently with Ferris and Sarah Tiliki in the same picture. So Ferris can confirm or deny that. Probably wouldn't if she does come back and he's back there and there could potentially be an alliance. And I want to blow his game up. But I feel like Sarah's not like looking for it. Like it feels like she's really she's out of the Survivor circles almost. You don't hear much from her. And I don't know how eager she would be to go out there and play. But then again, if you talk to any previous Survivor player that have played it, most of them are like, I would go back out there tomorrow if I got the chance to play. You did say that there's a few people. Obviously, Gabe came up with Sam. I love Sam. Like, I think Sam, that move with Jesse in that season that she played Blood vs. Water, Johnny fair play level of move. Like, it should consistently be seen as one of the best moves. Like my grandma's dead kind of move and stealing the idol from Jesse. That level of gameplay move when it comes to Australian Survivor. So Sam, based on that move alone, should come back and play again. And I do think she's got a strategic mind for the game. Jenny here is saying Phoebe. That's another person, obviously, who will be brought up. And then, my personal, one of my favorite winners of all time is Pia. Like, I'd love for Pia to come back and play the game again. I've done a podcast with Pia before where she said she wouldn't necessarily want to come back and play Australian Survivor. Again, she feels like she's done it, right? She's gone there, she's won, she's lived the dream. But on that podcast, she said the only chance of her coming back would be either for an all-winners Australia season or for a Worlds Collide best of the best around the world type of season. So this falls right in that pocket of where maybe they can get Pia to come back. Or if Pia doesn't come back, I don't know if I would want to see both of them on the same season. You've also got Janine, the godmother. So there are a few players that you could still sort of reach out to that you're like, there's some great female contestants out there that could still play this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Liz.
I don't know. Janine contracted to Channel 9. What was the latest show that she did? She was doing Shark Tank, right?
She was on Shark Tank. That was on Channel 10, though.
I can't believe she jumped in the tank with sharks.
Yeah, so we should be able to get, if she's on Channel 10, then we should be able to get her. If they want
I don't know if she's done anything since then, though.
Yeah, so maybe Snuff will be able to let us know. Trying to see. So for me, Kirby is the other one. Like,
there you go.
Kirby is. I think Kirby's the biggest lock right now.
Yeah.
All these players not being available currently probably puts Kirby as like the number one draft pick if they could choose someone to go back and play the game right now. Would there be any disagreements? We don't have Tom on the podcast, so we could probably move on from this because he would probably be like, no, Caroline
she's
would
absolutely
obviously
lock.
be ahead.
I just thought of someone. Sean, the two-time runner-up. What's your guys' thoughts on Sean?
Like, the thing for me with Sean is I like Sean, very nice lady and everything. She made it to the end twice, but she's not exciting to watch. Like, if I was going to cast for this season, I would want exciting players to come and play the game, right? And on that basis alone, I probably wouldn't necessarily go there because you want to get really big game players that are going to make moves, going to risk it for the biscuit to get to the end and win the season, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I think Liz is a good one just because of what she can bring physically as well, and she's a winner.
Yeah, Liz is a good one. So again, Liz for me. I don't think she was and again, I wasn't out there. I mean, it was just a guy with a podcast, Mike, with an opinion. Wasn't like, for me, it felt like she rode the coattails of George to get to the end and win the season. But she did win the season. And physically, she's very capable. And she was spicy. She was spicy. She had a personality about her. She's not going to sit down and go down quietly if she had to play the game again. And you want... Oh, no ways. Liz is pregnant as well. Every time what is it with Australian Survivor and everybody getting pregnant right now? Like, it's like all the players we're trying to get back on the show, they're all pregnant. But yeah, I think Australia's got what I'm getting from this is Australia's got their act together. We've got players. We're ready to play. We're ready to go. It's the US side now that we need to get some players to come and play the game. I have heard rumors that South Africans have been contacted, right? So I know that they're definitely putting their feelers out there. Cannot confirm or deny who have been spoken to, but there's definitely some feelers going out, right? So, so there seems to be some truth to the whole fact that there could be Survivor South Africa, Australian Survivor, and US players playing in a season. I don't know anything about New Zealand. But if we go by that news, we're looking at a shortened version. We're looking at 16 days, 14 players. How do you cast for that season, Mucky? 14 players, you've got to choose between Australians, New Zealanders, US. You know, what a mess.
Yeah, what a shit show. Like why not just make another season of New Era at this point? Do you get what I mean? Like, or just do one world, right? You know, merge tribe, 14 people. You know, let's do it. No, I think it's quite interesting because even talking about from New Zealand, and I know that UK has even been mentioned as well. I was trying to think who would come back to play from New Zealand, and there's only two people who I know who are actually still in the Survivor community, and that's Lisa, the winner of season 2. But even then, I'm not sure if she would really want to do like an Australian season with how physically intense it is. Another one is Mike from the first season, but even then, like, he's just such a random pick because all he did was stay on Redemption Island and just came back and got voted out straight away. And then, exactly. Why bother with it? The only people that I can think of is Tanuke and Doug because they're the only ones who actually played a really good strategic and social game. But even then, that's only, 4 people? And then, 5 Americans, 5 Australians then? You're going, like how do you really cast for it? It doesn't make sense.
I think the way you would do it, and it would be completely unfair, but I think the way to do it is Australia versus the world. So you have a world tribe where the numbers aren't going to, like, you could have a couple from South Africa, you could have a couple from the US. And if the numbers mean, like, there's only one season of the UK, so you could get that one person from the UK and have enough to make up 7 from the world and then 7 from Australia kind of thing, and have it play out that way rather than having a team from a tribe from each country or whatever. So you could just have it Australia versus everybody kind of thing.
14 is such an odd number. Like Gabe says here, like, how would you have like an even men and female ratio?
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't even be even. Like, so I'm hoping that it's not 14. I'm hoping they go, like, again, I'm happy for them to hold on this for an extra year or two, get some of these players that potentially are out right now, even some of the Australians that we've just mentioned, some of the girls that are pregnant that we would love to see come back and play the game. Like I don't know if there's some time crunch from Channel 10 or the production team, like, where they're like, we may not get to do this in the future because there is risk of the show not even being there long term. I don't know if there's that kind of pressure, which is making them push even harder to get it done, because maybe they feel like that is the catalyst that would make people take note of Australian Survivor. And it's like a strategic move to gain a wider reach, go onto Paramount Plus, get exposed to the US target market. I don't know. Like, there could be a lot of things happening at a boardroom level right now on making the show successful long term that we're just not privy to. Where if it's about longevity, if it is about the fact that they could put the show on Paramount if there are US players involved in it, and due to that, there could be a sort of a chance for them to capture some of that US audience, and it means that there's another 10 seasons secured for Australian Survivor. I get why they push ahead, right? Because then it's like so beyond what we as fans even comprehend right now in regards to why they're making this move.
Well, something that I know has been happening, especially a lot in New Zealand and even within Australia, but the funding for a lot of shows is being cut. I know that The Bachelor, and I think there was another popular reality show in Australia that got cut. A lot of New Zealand shows have been cut at the moment and stuff like that as well. And so, yeah, like, you might as well just
Bachelor over here was cut?
Yeah, exactly. You might as well go for glory.
Channel 10 might not even exist in a couple of years, I've heard.
Yeah, so I feel like there's some bigger things at play here. Obviously, again, just the guy with a mic and an opinion. Don't know anybody at Channel 10 that has given me this information, but I feel like there could be more going on than what we as fans maybe even appreciate or understand at this stage, right? So it's an evolving space when it comes to Australian Survivor. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen. We're probably going to have more news, I would say, as we head into filming this season. I would say probably in the next, 4 to 5 weeks, more news will probably start coming out because they'll have to start getting their ducks in a row for what's happening when that season concludes. I would imagine they're going to try and film it back to back to save on costs, right? So at some point, things will come out, I feel like. So we're probably weeks away.
What do you think if they did a season, probably for Australian Survivor, where you were able to do the same concept, but without using returnees or legends? So if you did an all newbie season, but made it Australia tribe versus US tribe, you kind of get the cultural differences, who's better, the bragging rights of the country, like, rivalry, that kind of thing. But
make it a full season.
Like you said, if there's US people on it, it doesn't have to be the Boston Robs of the world, but if there's a US team that they can root for, Americans root for, like Australians wouldn't root for our team. But if there's someone that they can get behind, maybe Australian Survivor does pick up more of that audience because they've taken the reins of going, it's not the world's global championship we've been wanting, but we can put in a one season of the Ashes version, you know what I mean? Or like whatever it is, Australia versus US, get all newbies if you can't get the legends because of timing and scheduling and all that. Just get randoms to play in Australian Survivor that have nothing to do with Jeff and Australian Survivor. They just happen American Survivor. They just happen to be Americans.
Yeah, and what you could easily do, I like that idea, and Gabe also is in on it. He's saying all newbies, AU versus US would be a fun market. Olympic. It would be like the Survivor Olympics, right? And you could even go wider than that if you want. But I feel like the key play for Australia here is to get a US audience behind the Australian franchise and for it to be on Paramount Plus long term, if they want to have longevity, right? So that could be the key play that they're making here. If they were to cast similar to how they casted for champions versus contenders, they could have champions from the US, right? So they could go to a current Olympic gold medalist or, people that would make the US audience interested in it because they're like, oh, wow, I want to see Michael Phelps play Survivor, or you know what I mean? Like, so you could very cleverly hook and get people like that onto the show, which would then
give us a job, Channel 10.
Yeah. Channel 10, if you're listening to it, cut it, clip it, let us know. Like, we would definitely, we'll throw some ideas out there. And as I say it, we've got a Survivor South African two-time all-star player here in the chat. Tony, welcome to the live, saying, I like the idea of all newbies global Survivor. Totally agree, Tony. I like it as well because, again, half of the fun with Survivor, right? If you're not going to get the right cast, you're not going to get the right players, and you're going to make it a dumbed-down, shorter version, get new players. This is when Survivor works at its best. It's strangers meeting together from different walks of life, different backgrounds, playing the game. And I would go further. You could have, if it's not just that strategic move to have people, a wider audience from the US exposed to Australia, which I think they're trying to play at, you could have South Africa in there. You could have New Zealand in there. You could make it truly a global season with people from different parts of the world that have to learn to work together. And the cultural differences is massive for anyone that have lived in different countries and that have traveled quite a bit. I think it would come into play, to be honest. Jenny here says, I love Survivor Olympics global season eventually being a thing every 3 or 4 years. That could be really cool as well. Brendan is saying, here's my pitch. Organize a World Cup, Australia versus US, every 4 years, where the top 4 from each qualify for the upcoming quadrennial Survivor. What would that be? What would the quadrennial Survivor be?
See, Brendan, I feel like, like we had a great idea brewing, right? It was getting better and better, and you just sacked it, brother. You just sacked it, all right?
Listen, Lolo Jones, I would watch it. I would, like, Lolo Jones is TV gold. Like, I would, like, it's not just Olympic gold. I don't think she actually won Olympic gold, right? Did she? She won, like, a medal, but...
She won Olympic gold in bobsled, I think it was.
All right, but she can also be she's reality TV gold as well. Brendan says this way we have a build up of over 4 years. Tony's saying new players need to learn the game and it will eliminate the problem of pre-gaming, which really does mess up a game. Totally agree. And we spoke about this earlier, Tony. I know you weren't in the live earlier, but we spoke about this specifically for Survivor 50 with there being such a long period of time now before Survivor 50 is a thing. We feel like Survivor players from 47, 48, and 49 will be severely disadvantaged by the fact that we don't even know who's going to play yet. They don't have any opportunity to pre-game right now. So, love the fact that we know season 50 is going to be a returnee season, but I don't know if it was the best way to announce it. And this is the other part of this is like, we didn't actually explore this, Mucky, but maybe there was some desperation from Jeff where he started feeling fans turning on him in recent seasons where it was like, I need to give them some good news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something we've talked about a lot offline, Chris, is, the state of Disney, Star Wars, and Marvel, where a lot of things is just key jangling at this point, right? There's no good stories. It's just, oh, look, this is a cool thing. That's a cool thing, but no good story.
Smoke and mirrors.
It's smoke and mirrors. I feel like American Survivor has always been that. It's like, oh, look at this. We're bringing the auction back. Oh, my God, Survivor is saved. But it's still shit. You get what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like Jeff was really feeling the pressure of, like, more and more people are not liking New Era. We've got to do something to get fans more excited for Survivor again. And what's something that can make people excited? A returning player season. But yeah.
Chris is keeping us honest here, saying Lolo has never won a medal at the Olympics.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
What do you think Jeff's aversion to returnees has been since 40? Like, why has he waited so long? What's the point of it?
Because there's no one been likable enough to come back. Sorry, I hate the New Era players. I do. Like, everyone sucks.
That, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know.
The 36 to 39
for me,
world.
So for me, I think that Jeff is just, I don't know, like, it's hard to predict what he's doing at the moment and what he's doing and why he's doing it the way that he is, right? He's on his own island doing his own thing.
It makes no sense to me.
I don't get it either. Like, honestly, I've stopped trying to understand Jeff a couple of seasons ago. Will has said here something that I feel like a lot of people are not ready to have this conversation, right? But saying that Jeff stepping down would be a good thing. And it pains me. It pains me to say it, right? Because I love Jeff as a host. He's done so much for the franchise. He is the face of Survivor. Without him, there would not have been a Survivor Australia or Survivor South Africa or New Zealand Survivor, right? Like, he started it. He's the person who started it. But it has gotten to that point now where I do feel like, what's that saying? If you're a hero and you live long enough, you become a villain. And that's what he's become. He's literally going against. But there's a lot of people who love what Jeff is doing. He's divided the audience. There's still people out there that does not agree with us and love New Era Survivor, love fast food Survivor, where they get the same format every single season. Specifically, the pre-merge is very painful to watch, right? It's after merge that normally gets better, but pre-merge is very painful. And that's a part of the game that they need to fix.
Even beyond that, right? If you're working within that framework of rolling out production lines, same thing over and over again, wouldn't it make it even easier if you have cast members that how they work? This person works very well, gives great confessions. Production loved them. They were so friendly. That person was an asshole to production. We're not bringing them back. There's no unknowns.
The challenge does.
Cast. Exactly. They know exactly what they get and they work with it well. And that's how you find the gems that you bring back for multiple seasons that give you the Sandras and the Robs and the people that we fall in love with, is because of that. And you find the people that work well and then you give them more. And the people that don't work well, you filter them out. Like, that's how it should work. And he's doing himself a disservice by making his job easier by having people that are easier to work with. Like, even beyond just the unknown is harder to work with.
I think, Gabe, 45, and I've seen you say this before, 45 was good. And it's, again, because of D winning that season and being the best winner of the New Era season, it's an outlier season. We've had 6 seasons now where I felt like it had its moments. 45 had a great cast, right? And the cast delivered beyond the limitations of the format that they had to play, right? So you have to get it right for a season to stand out, I feel like, in New Era these days. But yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with a lot of these comments. Gabe saying 40 took away the glamour. We think the game is pure. Casuals know about pre-gaming now. Will is saying saving money to make trash shows are very addicting. Put in Winners at War in the edit. Jenny K, Jeff being EP was the worst thing to ever happen. Hosting was fine. Having control, no. And I also feel like, again, he's got no one to balance him. Like, Jeff doesn't have a person to balance him on his ideas. Yes, Maki?
Well, something I just want to add on about Jeff being an executive producer is that something that I feel like that really benefits Australian Survivor and even South African Survivor is they had the history of American Survivor to look at and be like, okay, this is what was done really well. These are things that didn't work well. Let's not use that, right? And I feel like Jeff could really learn a lot, especially from Australian Survivor, because Australian Survivor definitely does have its flaws, right? There's definitely, quite a few moments it's like, that's not exactly the greatest. Jeff could learn from that and even adapt like the good things from Australian Survivor and South African Survivor into his own New Era Survivor. But I feel like he's blinded himself into thinking, he's the god, he's the greatest. And so, I feel like that's where American Survivor is failing. It's not looking to learn from others.
I'm not a fan of this idea, by the way, Brendan. So Brendan says, what about Circle Meet Survivor, televise orgs? It will save money, and then once they reach merge, they're flown out to an island to play Survivor IRL. Be right back calling CBS to fix Survivor. The problem for me, and Tony obviously being a host of an org as well, I forgot the name of the org. Shout it out, Tony, and I'll shout it out on the podcast. But obviously, my big issue when it comes to New School Survivor, and I've said this a few times, I think, to Kahuna, is that it feels like we're getting like a lot of the players that probably would play orgs playing Survivor now. Like, it's super fans. It's more of the nerdy archetype. It's not like, I just want to see normal people. I want to see people who are not always like that correct when it comes to game strategy and what the optimal move is, and that is like a Survivor geek. Like, just give us normal. No, not Banu. Banu was a Survivor geek. Like, he dreamt about playing Survivor since day one. To play it. Yeah. Again, like, no, just give me normal. Like, give me normal people playing Survivor. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've got Drew, obviously loves Survivor, put 46 days into watching 6 seasons of Survivor, said, yet the viewers keep watching. They put up pre-streaming view numbers this year. Not a Jeff fan as a producer, but the numbers are there as far as something is working. I hear that all the time. Right? Yeah, I hear that all the time. Yeah. To me, if I compare the numbers to where it used to be, it's not there anymore. Like, yes, it's stable compared to the other shows that are playing, but as a whole, I think TV viewership is down. It's down.
Yeah, but so why not strive for more? Like, why be happy with it? It's still it's working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is generally a good concept in life. But when you're doing it,
and the other question is, how many people are out there like us that are hanging on by a thread but are still watching? Like, that doesn't tell you the full story of how many people are. They're still there for the nostalgia, and they're still there for what the show used to be. But the scary thing is that you never know what's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, where people are going to say, I'm out. I'm not watching the show anymore because they're just not improving. They're not being creative anymore. They've given up, so why should I care? Like, I feel like that number could be an inflated number.
There's so much competition, not just other reality TV shows, but just like the internet in general. Like, like to keep people's eyeballs on a show like that is more and more difficult in the entertainment world today. So you have to do stuff to make sure that you're getting that attention,
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of good ones. So Tony obviously coming up saying, yes, you're right, Chris. Some of us now watch with half an eye open. We aren't invested as we used to be. And then Jenny saying, I feel like Survivor getting nominated for an Emmy, which they did, first time in years, will make Jeff think that New Era is great. And in some ways, as much as I'm happy it got praise, it's bad at the same time, because obviously Jeff will believe he's going in the right direction. Yeah. And again, I'm hoping that they get it right. I really want Survivor to, and the key thing here is Survivor is a great show, but they have stopped innovating, and I want them to go back to innovating again. That is my issue with the show, and I'm comparing it to a show that is, in my opinion, kicking its ass, which is The Challenge, and they should not be better. The challenge should not be a better product than Survivor. Survivor's got way more money behind it than what the challenge has, right?
Because one thing Survivor does well, especially when you're talking about Emmy nominations and stuff, is that production levels are it still looks pretty. It's still a very
good production,
well done television product. But when you look at, like, if it was a movie, like, it looks amazing, but the plot is shit. Like, that's what we're talking about, right? Like yes, the cinematography is phenomenal. Yes, the shots and the location and everything they do looks schmick. It's great. But the storyline and the narrative and everything behind it is what's letting it down.
Yeah. Jenny here is saying recruits are great looking at Survivor AU with Kirby, or people who are not super fans. Will saying I'm not watching till 50 if they don't have a returning season till then. And then Tony saying Jeff can't be that Delulu.
Something about the recruits as well. Let's not forget that David Goodnart was a recruit. And I think he's probably either the best player for Australian Survivor or definitely up there in terms of the best player. And I think it's a very interesting argument. Who is a better player? Like, you have your recruits and your super fans. Because even with one of our favorite seasons, Chris, not Island of the Idols, Island of Secrets with Rob Benatelli, he wasn't a big fan going out there, and he snooped so many big fans. He didn't know what he was doing. He played such a dominant game.
A lot of the times it comes down to if you have non sort of big fans, if you've got casuals playing the game or recruits playing the game, they innovate because they don't know what has been there before them. So they actually play to the situation in front of themselves. They're not trying to be the next Tony Blackhorse or the next Parvati. They're trying to be something new, But anyways, I feel like that's as much like the end of this podcast. We spoke a little bit in the beginning about, all the news that's coming up, Survivor 50. What do we think about it? We spoke about Australian Survivor with Survivor South Africa and World playing against each other. Lots and lots of discussion here. I feel like we kind of ended it back right where we started on Survivor US in its current state, which all three of us are not big fans of, which it would have been great in the future. We'll get Drew to come on and we'll get Jake to come on to defend it, because I feel like they definitely would have defended it a lot more if they were on the podcast. And I'll hear them out. I'll always hear them out. And I want Survivor US to be good, for the record. I'm a fan. The reason I started podcasting was because of my love for Survivor US. When Mucky first met me, Survivor US was my show. He knows this. I told him back then.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Survivor US. It's the best franchise. Survivor South Africa back then was pushing it for me and was starting to become a franchise that I enjoyed more, especially being South African. And then since then, I've had to admit, Australian Survivors has had the premier product in the last couple of years.
Do you remember our first podcast together, Chris?
No.
It was about heroes versus villains and the rumor cast, and you were shitting on it so hard, going, man, like, it's stupid they're doing heroes versus villains, like, half returnees, half newbies. Oh, that's so dumb, so stupid.
Because it was a legendary season to take on. And I still stand by it that it was an okay season, but not because of the theme. The theme meant absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It was because of George.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you're not a George fan, you would not have liked that season, right? And we can all agree on that. But again, like I said, definitely there's been much improvements. And I will also come on here and I will cheerlead for Survivor US if they start getting things right, if they get me excited to watch it again. At this stage, I've enjoyed the off season, Kuna. I'm not going to lie. I've enjoyed the off season. I will come maybe a little bit too much. We won't be going into that. It's hard to get me back on a podcast, but we won't go into that too much. But the off season has been good to me, right? So I'm looking forward to the Challenge 40. That's going to be exciting. And I'm hoping that by the time Challenge 40 ends, we'll roll straight back into Survivor 47. And that 47 is going to prove both of all three of us wrong. And it's going to blow our minds because Jeff is going to have so much great innovation. He's going to change it up. It's no longer going to be 3 tribes. It's going to be 2 tribes. He's not going to have Decision Island. He's not going to have Sweat and Savvy. He's going to have new challenges on every single immunity challenge that we're going to do between the teams. It's just going to be such an innovative season that it's going to rekindle that love that both you and I have had for Survivor for many years, Kuna.
I'll take that bet.
So you're going under, you're not going over. All right,
Yeah.
that's it here for tonight. Thank you, everybody in the live. I know it was like a little bit of, this is like therapy for me. We get out our feelings, our thoughts about Survivor, its current state. Hopefully people enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, we will be talking a lot more about Survivor in the future. One thing we will always do on this podcast is keep it real. If Australian Survivor is not doing a good job, I'll call it out. If Survivor US can do better, I'll call it out. But if they do a good job, we'll be shouting for them. We'll be cheering them on. So if you do like that honest approach to what our thoughts are about the shows that we recap and review, then please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the like button, and we will catch you on the next live. But for now, grab your torches, head back to camp. Bye.